Second is loading to go live on YouTube.
Who's that? My name is Sean McGuire. I'm the Executive Director of the Albany County Land Bank. It is 2:33 p.m. on Wednesday, August 13th, 2025. We're calling to order a meeting of the Land Bank's Finance Committee, and we're holding this meeting remotely per New York State Open Meetings Law. This meeting is available on the Land Bank's YouTube channel for listening and viewing. Today, in our meeting, we have participating Charles Dewey and Sam Wells. Natisha Alexander is absent. From the staff, we have joining us the entire team today, myself, Lynette, Shelby, Lillian, and Susan. The agenda was circulated to the committee ahead of time. It contains just a few items. The first is a review of the minutes, and they reflect the minutes of the last meeting of the committee held back on July 9th, 2025. Hopefully, you've all had a chance to review those. Are there any questions, suggestions, or amendments to the minutes presented? And if not, if we can get a motion to approve those to our records.
No changes here. I'll motion.
Motion by Sam, second by Charlie. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed, say nay. Abstentions, motion carries. All right, I'll get into our financial reports for this month. I'll refer to the line items here. Just a reminder, you have three documents in here: the balance sheet, the year-to-date performance, and the year-to-date comparison. I'm just going to stick to the first two. So I'll start out with the balance sheet here. I believe that's called the activity statement, actually, out of oh no, it is called the balance sheet out of QuickBooks. So I'm going to start just at the bottom line here on our assets on line 36, on the bottom of the first page. You'll see that we have more than 5.6 million available to the land bank and total assets. Total assets are made up of our cash and bank accounts at line 11, which is $3.495 million. You'll see on line 27, also included in our total assets is our property inventory, and that's net of any adjustments made, and that's $1.487 million. On line 19, we have our grant receivables of $445,000. That's grants that we have due to us that we're still collecting on. And I'll give you a sort of an example of that. Our LBI Phase 2 project, we have about $170,000 to take in there, just waiting for a payment to post so we can give the state the backup they need to send us the money back on one of the items. The total liabilities, jumping onto the second page on line 73, you'll see is at $1 million and some change there. That includes the total deferred revenues at line 66 of $439,000, and our lease liability of $160,000. That's on line 62. Overall, you'll see the land bank sits on a total equity of at line 77 of more than $4.6 million. That's the summary of the balance sheet here. Any questions on that?
The net revenue minus 340.
Yep. So our net revenue minus 340. That's how what we're trying to work on. And I did a little exercise just to get a sense as to how that number fluctuates. I thought we would be turned in a different direction. And knowing that we have 170,000 to come in from the state plus the 250 from the county, that's more than that 340 there. So on paper doesn't look like, it still looks like we're in that deficit space, but I think we're going to keep climbing out of there. It really relies on us being able to get those grants knocked down. I will say with staffing changes here, as we're preparing one of those reimbursements, we're getting caught up on some bills that should have gone in the past and are now getting submitted to the state for reimbursement. So it'll help improve that equity position. But I'm not overly overall concerned about that. Some of the challenges, right, is going to be, always due to where we are in terms of the property space. But I think we're in a good spot considering we're still holding holding without any acquisitions this year, but just doing entirely dispositions.
Hey, sh-
So the Henry Johnson Boulevard is on hold because there's no developer. And then the South End one, they want to backload it, you know, so we have to adjust when we expect to get any of that money, right?
Yeah, so the Ontario Street project, they want to just modify, timing of that contribution to the land bank. Some of that has to do with the relationship that we have with the developer. And I'm just trying to straighten that out with HCR, just for our own independent validation. I don't believe that our partners are telling us something that's not the case, but I think just to do our own due diligence, we've asked that same question. The
That's
South
what I
End
was-
project. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
So we're looking at some sort of delay because he wants to put it in a different way. So we're talking about months, maybe a year or two or whatever. If we don't get it in one fiscal year, we might get it in another fiscal year.
Yeah, I think we projected some of that this year, but a very low amount. Most of what we were expecting was going to come in from the Ontario Street project, and even that we weren't entirely all in on. But I'm sorry, the South End project, not the Ontario Street project. We expected something, from each of those, but we'll adjust those. And those really feed into our 5-year financial projections as well, because we're timing those payments out over a period. But yeah, so that'll affect some of it, sure. To give you some context, right, is that we expected to, when we close on Ontario Street, $800,000 payment at closing. But with this relationship that we have, the timing of that may be shifted, but to not to create some inconsistencies with our procurement record and process, we're looking to set the $800,000 as the value at closing, and if it's paid later, that there's adjustments for net present value. Not a windfall, but instead of us getting to sit on the money and gain interest on it, we wouldn't have that. So we're just trying to compensate for what we're losing in the time value of money there.
Sean, I have a question. Line 13, undeposited funds. What is that?
Those are bank deposits that we've entered in. Then they're in transit to the bank. So at the end of July, we just had 16,130 in transit to the bank.
Gotcha. Sort of like a check hold kind of thing. Okay.
Yeah, so just from an internal process here, what happens is that when we receive checks in, a deposit slip is prepared, I review that, I enter that into QuickBooks, and then I hand that back. And Lynette, for example, usually does most of the deposits. So we have to have a separation of roles there because I sign the checks, I don't deposit the checks, but I do put them into QuickBooks and then generate the deposit slips. So some of that's just that transit.
Got it. Thank you.
Mhm. Yeah, you're welcome. All right. No other question on the balance sheet. I'll move on to the year-to-date performance, which is the next set of sheets in the finance packet. I'm gonna try to group these together because some of the way this flows relates back to one and the other. I'm gonna start out on the revenue side of the profit and loss. And I'm gonna start here at line 20, our total revenue of $360,000. We are below budget. We had 3.1 million for total revenue below budget, but that's primarily due to, and that's line 20, is that 3.1 million below budget. That's primarily due to delays from our LBI phase 2 funding in line 6. With that 1.8 million, and I think that we have to actually adjust that a little bit more because we have another LBI grant in there. And then the reduced property sales in line 12. That is where, we had some income expected from the closing on some of those, the co-development properties. But you'll see that like in line 8 above, our strategy for, just maintaining our cash in our accounts is having a positive income to more than $60,000 year to date. So, on a larger budget, it's not a big deal, but I think that's still nice to see our cash working for us at the end of the day. I'm gonna go next to the cost of goods sold. Oh, go ahead, Charlie.
Sean, back to line, 20. I'm wondering about the language. It says actual 340,000, budget 3.4, and then it says over budget 3,100,000. Aren't you under budget? Why does
Right,
it say?
so- Yeah, it's a formatting quirk of QuickBooks, which puts a very small negative sign to the left of that dollar sign there. So we're over budget. We're under the over budget. So our over budget's a negative number, which means we're under budget.
Negative, but maybe it does somewhere. Oh, I
Yeah,
see,
there's
next to the
yeah.
dollar sign. Oh, God.
Yeah, yeah,
All
they
right,
found
never
this-
mind.
yeah. QuickBooks
Well,
uses the smallest negative sign possible.
My account, small pencils for those reasons.
Yeah, I've been guilty of missing that negative too. But not here, we're okay. So, yeah, so
All
that's
right.
where we are with the total revenue. I'll go down to B, cost of goods sold, because that gives us some insight as to, what we're doing with our properties. So the bottom line on that, on line 59, our cost of goods sold is $306,000. That's, line, let's see, I'm just there, cost of goods sold, yes. We are, on that same line, if you look at the budget, we're $2.2 million under budget, but that's due to the reduced demolitions that if you look up to line 38, we have not gone through the 1.2 million that we were anticipating in demolitions yet. And that's because we have the other, land bank grant to get started on. So was expecting to do that this summer. But again, with some changes here, we're hopeful to pick that up in the fall.
Are we ever in danger, of recapture if we don't spend it fast enough?
No. When I got here, we were probably in the most precarious position with the $1.8 million from the LBI because not much of it has been spent, but we were quick to put that money to work and we can do the same. We were trying to get the LBI phase 2 spent down on Elizabeth Street, so that way we can start in on the next projects and the next tranche of funds.
Got it, okay.
No concerns. We still have at least a year on that contract.
Got it.
And then we also, our cost of goods sold are under because our rehab activity, if you look at line 33, our total rehabs, we just haven't gotten into the full rehab space, less all the adjustments along the way. So we're doing fine there. I'll go to line 60, our gross profit. We are under where we expected to be at this point. Line 60, we're at gross profit of 54,000. We had budgeted 956,000, but again, some of that is due to the timing of those co-development payments. And then as we finish wrapping up some of the other grant projects along the way. So again, not overly concerned there. The reason I keep highlighting the grant projects is because we get program administration fee for that. So generally we're looking at, 5% for program delivery to be able to bring into the land bank. But again, that gross profit also has to do with the property sales piece that we're hoping for some inventory, but we haven't gotten it yet. So we're making do with what we have right now. On our line 104 operating expenditures, 471,839. If you look to line 104, we're $484,000 under budget. And we got savings across payroll at line 71, savings at insurance on line 74, and then professional services at line 82. So where we can make adjustments and corrections to account for where we are, we're doing a great job in that in the operating expenditures. So then you get back down to our net operating revenue. Before adjustments for other revenue, line 105 is negative 417,752. When we add in our miscellaneous income from line 111, we add in our miscellaneous income from line 107 and our insurance reimbursements at line 110, we gain another $77,000 in revenue, which gets us that negative net revenue of negative 340,654 at line 113. Any questions on that?
None here.
All right. So, the other piece is just some year-to-year, or year-over-year comparison, but it's just some of the volatility that we have, again, with inventory. It's not the best tool, but I'm happy to answer any questions you might have about that. My keynotes and takeaways, for where we are at the end of July, is that we still have a strong cash position, and that's back up to, line 11 on the last page. But anyway, our cash position, line 11 on our balance sheet, our total bank accounts, represents more than 60% of our assets. And so that's a great place for us to be. We still have significant grant revenue expected from the LBI programs in phases 1 and 2. Those are at line 17 and 18 on the balance sheet. And most of the variances that we have are largely tied to the timing of our major grant disbursements. You can see that at line 6 and 65 in project completions. And like I said, as we're wrapping up the LBI phase 2, we're a couple of days away from $172,000 request back to the state to be reimbursed for. And then we still have our, we don't go to the county, too quickly for their contribution every year. Not that we don't need it, but, we hold back on that. So we're in the second half of the year. I'll get that for those folks. And that wraps it up for my report to the Finance Committee where we're at.
Hey, Sean,
Yeah.
any updates from the county on their, foreclosures and when that's going to happen and what that's going to look like for us?
No updates yet. I do have a meeting with some of my friends down there this coming Monday. So I'm gonna see where they might be at. But last time I talked to them, no, we're still waiting for an auction date that I haven't seen. I know that they were going through a process to do the title searches and be able to serve the notices. Last time I talked to Jeff Neal, I believe is the last update that I had from him. So unfortunately, no, they haven't given us a target date for those yet.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Yeah,
And
you're welcome.
just to refresh my memory, when that auction is held, whenever it is, do we know what our role will be if we have one? Or, how, like, if properties don't sell at the auction, what's the process for any properties coming to us?
Well, I think that's been one of the issues that needed to be sorted out with the county. Because the way the law is written, where there's clearly no equity owed because, the value of the property is far below, what the liabilities are. So you take your typical property that was taken in foreclosure that had a demolition lien on it. It's probably where we, see a lot of those. There's not enough there to justify an equity claim. And so those might be ones that we start to see sooner than later, unless they decide to take them into auction, because I think they have a better opportunity to realize something there, because they still have to make up the difference if they can. It's the question of whether or not on the ones that do have equity, how the county will do that process. The way the law is written, they have to go to if it goes to auction and doesn't meet what I guess I'll just call a reserve for the amount that is owed back to the county for its exposure as for taxes and liens and everything. If it doesn't sell for that, then they have to go back to a second auction no sooner than 90 days later. And if it doesn't sell, then the way the law is written is that all equity is thereby extinguished. So there can't be a claim of equity. But if a property is sold at auction, for the reserve, that extinguishes equity. So, at reserve or under, that extinguishes equity. But I don't think that I think some of it has to do with how the county is going to approach that, and then how we might play a role in that too, because we potentially could bid on property ourselves. It would, be a significant. We would probably drain some cash doing that along the way. So we'd have to be strategic in how we approach that and how we partner with the county to get property back out there and redeveloped.
That law that you're referring to, is that county or state?
That
Just to-
was the state law. Yep.
Do you have a copy of that? Would you mind sending that to me when you
I
have a
can send it
moment?
to you.
Thank you. I appreciate it. I wasn't familiar with that, so that'd be good to know. Thank you.
Yeah, no, the changes to that law require the county to update its disposition plan as well, so. All right, if there's nothing else before this committee, I think your business is done today. You can stand adjourned. And then we will be back at 3 o'clock for the next one, acquisition and disposition.
We leave the line open or what?
Yeah, if you want to mute on here, you're both on this as